When anyone talks about this being a weak class, one of the things you will often hear in response is, well, the last time the experts said that was 2020, and we got LaMelo, we got Ant, Halliburton, Bain, Maxey. What is your response to that criticism of 2024 draft coverage?
So, yeah, this is one of those things that drives me absolutely crazy. Every year, there are going to be players from outside of the top 10 that emerge into, all-stars, high-level starters, etc. Right? That should have been taken higher. It's the reality of evaluating teenagers in such a nascent stage of their development. The problem with comparing 2024 and 2020 is that 2020 had three guys in LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, and James Wiseman. I think I had it LaMelo, Ant, Wiseman. I might have had it LaMelo, Wiseman, Ant. I can't remember which way I had 2 and 3 that year. I had them all in tier 2, though. All three of those guys, and we can talk about the efficacy of whether or not Wiseman should have ever been there, right? But all three of those guys were considered elite level, top 1 or 2 tier prospects from the moment they hit the draft cycle, basically.
Yeah.
Or in LaMelo's case, from the moment that he played at the NBL Blitz and looked as good as he did. And the draft cycle kicked off in November. I had LaMelo at number 3 or 4, I think, by November, like mid-November, early or like late October, something along those lines. This is all off of memory. If I'm wrong, I'm not trying to like obfuscate in any way, like what my past rankings were. I'm literally just doing this off of memory. Throughout the year, from November onward, December onward, something like that, I had Anthony Edwards 1, LaMelo Ball 2, or LaMelo 1, Ant 2, in that ballpark. And that was a long cycle. From that point, that was like a 12-month cycle, because that was the year that the draft got moved back due to COVID-19. So there were players in that class that were identified as being all-star caliber players early. No one really in this class, save for maybe one player right now that we'll talk about momentarily here, I think has really emerged into that level of player yet. I think this draft class has a chance to have some really interesting depth in some of the upperclassmen. I think that this class, once you get outside of the lottery, is probably just going to be totally fine. But at the top end, there is not a ton of talent. And oh, by the way, the people that will point to, oh my God, the 2020 draft, it was this incredible draft, it was unbelievable. There are currently 4 all-stars from that draft, let's call it, right? Tyrese Halliburton, LaMelo Ball, Tyrese Maxey, and Anthony Edwards. I mean, who do you think are going to be the other all-stars from that class? Do you think Desmond Bane makes an all-star game?
He could.
He could. I agree.
Yeah.
I think that if you made me take the over-under on Desmond, and this is someone who loves Desmond and like genuinely only wants the best things for that dude as a human being. He is awesome. I am a huge fan of him. And like, as someone who like got to know him in the pre-draft process, I really, really want him to succeed. I think I would take the under personally.
What about Poku? What about Poku?
I would unfortunately take the under.
Wow.
Jaden McDaniels, do you think he makes an all-star game?
Probably not. What about Vassell?
No.
Devin Vassell, maybe. Yeah, like between Devin Vassell and Desmond Bane, I think that one of those two probably make an all-star game, right?
Yeah, I think so too. Yes.
The average number of all-stars in a draft class for like the last, I think it's like 12 years or so, something like that, is 5.6.
Yeah.
So that class, even with the emergence of Tyrese Halliburton, Tyrese Maxey, plus Ant and LaMelo at the top, that class still is below average in terms of all-stars in all likelihood. At the very least, it'll be average in terms of star power. Then we get to the number of busts there were at the top.
Yeah.
From James Wiseman, Killian Hayes,
Jalen Smith.
Isaac Okoro is a disappointment as a top 5 pick.
Pat Williams.
I think Pat Williams is a disappointment as a top 5 pick. I think Obi Toppin is probably a disappointment as a top 5 pick. Like, you run down the list. I get why people want to try and straw man this and like defend this, but like if you do this year after year and understand the process and understand what goes into it and what matters, it's very difficult to come to the conclusion that the 2024 draft was an above average class, I think I would say.